Howdy folks, Nathan here, and behind the camera, Case.
That's right, and today we are in Torrance, California for Honda's American Collection Hall. This is a bunch of their classic vehicles, and this will be available to the public.
That's right. This is actually open to anybody, and we're going to take you for a real quick tour throughout. It's not a huge museum, but there's a lot packed into a very small space. And we're going to do one orbit, and then I think maybe we'll go over there and show some of the other stuff that Honda builds aside from motorcycles and cars. But I wanted to give you a quick listing of these vehicles. Now, first of all, we're going to start just right over here with the 1965 S600. This was never sold in the United States, but some collectors have brought them here. And I'm pretty sure that the earlier ones actually had a chain running to the rear axle. And guys, if you are fans, please let me know if I'm wrong about this or what years they were where they did that and then they switched to a drive shaft. But anyway, I was told that these are really fun. Never driven one, I probably can't fit. But what else can I not fit in? 1970 N600, which I actually did drive in the United States. I put it on the 405 freeway and I was terrified. It's a long story. I believe air-cooled originally. Yeah.
Two-cylinder. It's under 600 cc's, and this 600 cc version was the one that was designed more for export markets like the US. This is based on a smaller displacement K car, and these things are absolutely tiny. 0 to 60, 19 seconds.
If you get to 60.
Yeah, about 36 miles per gallon, though, they said back in the day, which is actually pretty decent.
It is pretty decent. Now, check this out, because this is an interesting car. I grew up in the 70s, as some of you guys know, I'm an old man. And this is very interesting because the Honda CVCC, the Civic, this was one of the only cars that was able to be smog compliant without the use of a catalytic converter. It was extremely clean. Even by today's standards, it's relatively clean, and they still got amazing mileage. I knew a lot of people in school who had these types of cars, and by the time they had them, they were all beat up and they just kept on going. There's some fascinating vehicles here. We're gonna. I won't be able to read them all.
This one's actually pretty funny. This Accord. This is one that Tommy and I drove. We drove this very same one, and there's a video on that where you can actually see us taking this around Honda's facility here in Torrance. A really cool car. It also has that CVCC combustion technology to make it a really clean burn. And you would think old Accord, not that interesting, but this is actually a pretty cool car. It had some fun quirks to it.
It did indeed. My wife had a later version of this when she was in college. Let's go over to the first Prelude. Well, it's actually not the first. This is just an early Prelude. The first Prelude actually had a similar design to the Accord with the open headlights. This is the first one, I think, that had the pop-up headlights. And yeah, second generation. There we go.
This is also pretty cool. These are a couple vehicles that you almost never see in good condition. So here we have a first generation CRV, which is pretty rad because these cars were just so simple, so bare bones, but they did have one funky feature. They had a picnic table built into them, which
is so damn cool,
rad.
Right? And if you find one in good condition with the picnic table, this is a super high mileage one, and it was put on display. I think it has 500,000 miles on it.
Yeah, and Honda actually had this very car at one of the recent CRV events, just to show how far the CRV has come. And yeah, they talked to us about it. They've done a pretty extensive restoration on this one in particular.
I kind of prefer the first and second generation, to be honest with you. And also manual options.
This, speaking of manual options too, this is another highly underrated vehicle. This is a first generation Insight, which is actually a pretty crazy car. These were built alongside the NSX and the S2000, and they got as much as 70 miles per gallon. The body on this car weighed less than half that of the body on a three-door Civic at the time. So this whole car, aluminum monocoque chassis, it had a lot of plastic components to it, so the whole car weighed as little as 1,847 pounds. That's a really cool car, and it's a hybrid that you could get with a manual transmission.
And TFL actually owned one, but we found the worst one in the entire country that we bought.
Also, this S2000, I mean, these have become incredibly popular cars, and they're going for tons of money. Seeing one...
This is the CR version, too.
Like this, seeing one like this, too, that's in really good condition, unmodified, you know.
Yeah, good luck finding one unmodified. Which one?
Nathan,
you want to start on the motorcycles?
I'm gonna make you look at a motorcycle here.
No, I'm okay with that.
So, as it says here on the front of this bike, this is the NR750 oval piston. So, for those of you who aren't motorcycle people, this bike had oval pistons with 2 connecting rods, and it had 8 valves per cylinder. So it's basically 2 conjoined cylinders, and it took Honda a long time to engineer that and make it work. But these bikes are truly spectacular when it actually came together. They only made about 300 street versions of this, because this is basically a race bike.
Right.
But this was a massively influential motorcycle, and I have a picture of me sitting on this very same bike in Honda's warehouse before it was moved over here. This is one of the coolest motorcycles of all time.
Super, super rare. There's a couple other rare birds over here as well.
Yeah, there's a Honda Rune way down there, and that's got a crazy story behind it. I mean, there's so many cool bikes here.
TFL Bike is going to be showing a couple of these videos as well, I think. So
exactly.
Stay tuned for shorts or videos.
Yeah, so we'll show a little bit of that, a bit more on the motorcycle side, because I know not everyone is into bikes. Also, one more bike thing. Look at that inline 6-cylinder.
Can I show them the? Yeah.
Look at the pipes on this.
So look at this. There's 6. Come on over here. You probably see it better.
Rad. Super cool. CBX 1000. I think this was Honda's first bike, street bike, that was over 100 horsepower from the factory. I think 105 horsepower, 1047 cc.
Yeah,
and
this one basically.
This one has almost no miles on it. It's got 3 miles just over. One of Honda's greatest vehicles of all time, that here in the States was branded as an Acura, but overseas this was a Honda. Of course, the original NSX started life as a 3-liter. Later on, they went to a 3.2. These earlier versions, about 274 horsepower, so not tons of horsepower, but it's all aluminum, monocoque chassis. Yes,
basically
super light,
a race car. Very
analog.
There's a trivia question here too. Roman owned one of these.
Yeah.
He put snow tires on it too.
And, not to cast any shade on Roman owning one, but also Ayrton Senna owned a couple of these and helped develop it.
Yeah,
so
a lot of what you're seeing in terms of suspension, engine, a lot of the tuning, he was actually really hands-on
directly
with
involved
Honda.
in.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's this breathes his spirit, which is why you hear his name thrown into this car so often. Here's an Integra Type R. Now, the Integra is a really important vehicle for Honda and Acura, and that is because this is the affordable sports car that they build, or sports coupe, if you want to call it that. These things were remarkably good. Basically, the predecessor to what you're seeing with the Honda Civic Type R, just in terms of its overall capability. And now they have a new one, which we've actually driven.
Oh, yeah.
And it's good. It's properly good. It took me a while to warm up to the looks, but now I'm warm to it. And once you drive it, then you find the outside is more attractive. You know what I mean?
And again, it's another one of those cars that actually seeing it in good condition, unmodified, in this museum quality is pretty amazing.
That's one of the cool things about it. Now let's talk about this museum while we look at some motorcycles over here.
Yeah.
Because I bet you're wondering how much it costs to get in here. 0. Not a dime. You can come over here. It is in Torrance. It is at their headquarters. And as long as it's during work hours, the doors will be open and you will be able to come in here and look at this.
Yeah, and then the other thing that Honda is doing, which is pretty cool, is once a month, I think it's every 3rd Saturday, they're doing a Cars, Bikes, and Coffee event here. So especially Honda enthusiasts, but any vehicle enthusiasts, they can come to the show here. And I think it's from 9 a.m. to 12?
It's either 12 or 1.
Yeah, and so that way you can come check out what Honda has going on here. And finally, to wrap things up, I'm going to make people go through a couple more motorcycle things. So CB750 right here. This was actually my first motorcycle, not this one exactly, mine's still in my garage.
Yours would be in a museum too, my friend.
I doubt that. But these are really cool bikes. This kind of changed the motorcycle industry in a big way. This was the first bike to be called a super bike. It's an inline 4-cylinder. These were also very reliable and more accessible motorcycles, a lot of performance. This is a really important motorcycle in motorcycle history. And then finally, and I think this is kind of a poetic way to wrap things up, we're passing by a couple other cool bikes, and we've had to pass by a lot of cool things, but this is a Super Cub. And this is super important for Honda's history because this is the best-selling motor vehicle of all time. And this specific Super Cub is one of the first 3 Hondas.
3.
Is it number 3? Yeah.
The 3rd one that was sold in the United States.
Yeah, so this in
dealership.
particular is an incredibly important vehicle for Honda.
Yeah, this really signaled their entrance into the American market.
Yeah, and really that's all for this video. We wanted to give you guys a walk around to show you what's going on here at Honda's headquarters and something that you can actually see for yourself. So that's kind of a general outline, but you got to come check it out in person if you want to get the full picture.
Honda fans are really going to dig it, so I highly recommend you come. All right, guys, see you later.